Do you ever wonder what freight trains are carrying inside of all of those rail cars? Well, you'd be surprised how many things trains are actually able to transport in these cars. Most commonly, they hold everyday items such as building materials, common food ingredients, and other harmless things like coal. But sometimes, they can even carry hazardous materials. Usually, trains containing hazardous materials are handled with extensive care. But on June 28, 2004, in MacDona, Texas, things would go differently. On June 28, 2004, Union Pacific Manifest MHOTU-23 was sitting in Commerce, California early in the morning. The train consisted of 74 loaded freight cars and 4 Union Pacific engines on point. Leading the train were ST-70Ms 4929 and 4811, GP60 2066, and ST-70M 4545. The crew of the train were an engineer and conductor who had both gone on duty at 2:45 a.m. Once they boarded the train at East Yard, it began its 154-mile journey to Del Rio at 4:03. Due to meet the UP manifest that day was BNSF manifest MEAP-TUL-126-D with a crew of 2 and 124 various freight cars, mainly consisting of a string of empty hoppers from various railroads. The locomotive consist is unknown, but it's likely that there were 2 to 4 engines on the head end. The 2-man crew aboard the train had gone on duty at 8:15 p.m. the previous day. The manifest originated in Eagle Pass, Texas, and was destined for Tulsa, Oklahoma. The plan was for the BNSF manifest crew to tie down their train in the siding of MacDona, where a taxi would be waiting to take them to the terminal. Meanwhile, the UP manifest would stop at the West Junction at the MacDona siding and wait for the BNSF manifest to clear the main line. At 5 a.m., the UP manifest encountered an advance approach signal at the south end of the MacDona siding, indicating that the BNSF manifest had passed the West Junction. When train crews see advance approach signals, they're supposed to slow their train to at most 30 miles per hour and prepare to stop at the next signal. However, this did not happen. Instead, the UP manifest accelerated down the main line at 46 miles per hour. The BNSF manifest saw the UP manifest pass by and realized they were going way too fast to stop in time, so all they could do was watch while the collision unfolded. Once the crew of the UP manifest realized their mistake, they threw their train into emergency, but it was already too late.
I'm on Milton Road, and I think the train is still late.
I'm sorry?
I'm on Milton Road.
You're on Nelson Road? What's your emergency?
Sorry?
What's your emergency?
The train is derailed out there. It's white smoke all over its place.
What's going on out there on Nelson Road?
I'm on Nelson Road at the MacDona crossing. I can't breathe.
Well, what's going on, ma'am?
There's white smoke all over out there.
White smoke in your house?
Yes, sir.
At 5:03 a.m., the UP manifest sideswiped the BNSF manifest and derailed. The 16th car, which contained chlorine, burst open. Most of the chlorine released immediately vaporized into a white cloud that surrounded the area. All 4 locomotives and 19 cars from the UP train, as well as an additional 17 cars from the BNSF train, derailed and piled up. Originally, a single engine from a local fire department was dispatched to the crash site at 5:08 for what they thought to be a small fire reported by a nearby resident. Once they arrived at the scene at 5:15, they immediately had to retreat due to breathing difficulties. Realizing the severity of the accident, several firefighters returned to the wreckage in protective gear and began to search for survivors. To make things worse for rescuers, due to the derailment, they were unable to access multiple homes in the area to rescue the residents that had been exposed to the chlorine. Eventually, rescuers as far as San Antonio responded to the accident. More than 4.5 hours after the initial wreck, a group of firefighters entered the cloud of vapor to attempt to rescue the victims, but became disoriented and were required assistance by a second group to come to their aid. At 10:12, a third group consisting of 2 firefighters and 1 UP employee advanced through the wreckage, and finally, at 10:55, accessed 3 of the 5 injured residents inside of their home, who were airlifted to a nearby hospital at 11:46. Unfortunately, Once the team reached the second home, it was already too late. They would find the 2 residents dead on the floor after hours of chlorine exposure. In total, 3 people died, including the conductor of the UP manifest, 23-year-old Heath Pape. The engineer later stated in interviews that he and the conductor had escaped the wreckage, but the conductor would soon collapse. The engineer made attempts to carry him away, but he was ultimately unsuccessful. The 2 other victims were 59-year-old Lois Korber and her mother, 85-year-old Jean Hale, who were the 2 victims found by rescuers several hours after the crash. In addition, over 40 people were also injured by the chlorine gas. The cleanup cost was estimated at about $5.7 million, with an additional $150,000 in environmental cleanup. But the question still remained: how could such a horrible wreck happen? The NTSB quickly discovered that the wreck was caused by human error after the UP crew passed by multiple signals without stopping, but it wasn't as simple as the crew missing a few signals. Looking at their schedules, the NTSB concluded that the cause was likely the crew having a lack of sleep. The night before the wreck, the engineer had only gotten a few hours of sleep, while the conductor had been drinking the previous day. They came up with the theory that the engineer was experiencing micro-sleep episodes while operating the train. Micro-sleep episodes occur when someone experiences multiple 30-second periods of sleep within a short amount of time. The engineer was likely experiencing a micro-sleep episode while passing by the signals, and was therefore unable to correspond with them properly. The conductor, on the other hand, was unable to call out these signals because he was simply just sleeping on the job. Sometimes, although illegal, freight train engineers allow the conductor to just sleep through the trip while they control the train, which the NTSB found to be the most likely reason why the conductor of the manifest was unable to warn the engineer when he missed the signals. The NTSB also noted that the wreck was similar to another one that happened in Graniteville, South Carolina 1 year later, when the brakeman of a Norfolk Southern local threw a switch the wrong way and head-on collided with another train, rupturing a tanker filled with chlorine. It's likely that a train control system would have prevented the accident, and Union Pacific was in fact working on one at the time called Precision Train Control, but once Positive Train Control rolled out, they decided to scrap the idea altogether and began implementing Positive Train Control instead in the early 2010s. The crew of the UP manifest would have also likely been less affected by the chlorine if they left the locomotive with the proper emergency equipment, which was available in the locomotive at the time of the wreck. After the investigation was concluded, all crew rest times were looked into by the Union Pacific to make sure that all crews had an adequate amount of time to sleep before going on duty. The company was also sued by the Environmental Protection Agency, as over 70 truckloads of chlorine and diesel-contaminated soil needed to be removed from the crash site after the wreck. As well as this, multiple fire departments that had responded to the accident had to change their procedures to better accommodate hazmat and train situations. In the end, all 4 locomotives of the UP manifest were deemed a total loss and scrapped after the wreck. It's been 20 years since the wreck, and today, freight train collisions in the US are still a common occurrence. Luckily, after more train wrecks like the one in MacDona, railroads are working to handle hazardous materials even safer than before, and that is a relief to many. Thanks for watching until the end, and I'll see you all next time.